Thanks. Welcome, everybody. So yeah, I've been into this since lockdown showed up to be less than a few weeks. I was into cyberspace in the 90s, and now I thought it will happen. And it's been really a fantastic ride. And I think it's absolutely within the core competencies of architecture to take on these virtual spaces. It's, for me, architecture is all about spatial framing of communicative interactions. And while the engineering stack is 100% or totally kind of replaced by a new one, the core competency of designing for interaction and focusing on user experience and user interfaces, it remains the same. So yeah, we can kick off with the presentation. So you gave me a few more seconds. That's great. That's great. So we'll talk particularly about Metaverse urbanism. Metaverse for me part of Web3, the immersive web, and I'm focusing on these creative industry hubs and delivering co-location synergies for work environments, cultural interchange, etc. And for this is focusing on real-time interaction largely, but also exhibitions and other retrieval information. And the city analogy is very, very strong, I think, here, so that we can build on our competency of recognizing and navigating a complex field of social interaction offerings and do that in a browsing, immersive, roaming fashion. And Lieberland Metaverse was the first one where we tried this. And it's actually the ecosystem or the creative industry which we're addressing was the crypto and libertarian ecosystem. And we had for a year now nearly this space open, and we had a number of events, and we showed around clients and building up a community around using this so-called incubator space with multiplayer joining that. But since then, we have forked off, and we will continue our designers presenting in Lieberland Metaverse, but we developed our own kind of version of this where some asset migrate into what we call now Metrotopia. So we're moving to a new ecosystem. We want to address the designer and architectural ecosystem, so meaning the community of designers, as well as other players in the larger design ecosystem, including magazines, conferences, media, etc., etc. And so these are glimpses of what this might become. An urban core we're designing as the architects, but then we also have the kind of land business and procedurally generated assets which we could sell or lease out. We can also start to consider larger gatherings rather than more intimate spaces we at the moment have in our initial incubator building. So that's the kind of vision, and I think that we're well placed, and we're starting to build contacts, and we're building also a business plan, and we're seeking seed investment at the moment for Metrotopia. At the same time, in the last year, I had Metaverse Urbanism, studied it with the AADRL, how we can aggregate, and maintaining legibility in the face of complexity, aggregating a lot of offerings and facilities, and using the analogy again to recognize, event structures, public events like conferencing, museums, galleries, etc., retail spaces from workspaces and more generic fabrics. But there's a lot of differentiation, and we fill the space first with these generic fabrics. We could then kind of start to fill up. And the attempt here is also to maintain a kind of strong legibility of the overall, with a lot of variety, but with a lot of order as well, and fantastic spaces. So this is another version. So in a few student projects, which imagine here you're in a penthouse, which is also possibly overlooking the city. You invite friends over, you have your NFT collection, and you step out and see what's going on, and then kind of jump into some of these events. That's the vision. And also in-world builders we're looking at, and modular and procedural generation. And finally, I want to talk about, I'll show you this image, and that initially we're starting with a kind of strong analogy with built physical spaces, so we can orient and understand them, but we also can foresee that an emancipation for this kind of these strictures will happen, and we can allow for degrees of freedom of that new and new constraints and degrees of freedom in the virtual and digital construction become possible. And I think that is also an exciting exploration, but still there's kind of pseudo-gravity. There is the migrating out of the analogy into new potential. So I think it's quite exciting on many levels. And I think a lot of this will feed back into the physical as well. So yeah, I'm full on with this stuff.